It became a story about just what it's like to struggle in entertainment, which I mean, I love working in film, I love working in animation, but it's a hard industry to be in. It's so hard to find appreciation in film with animation. Behind the scenes, it was hard because they voiced that they did not like working with animation. I mean, you hear about it all the time where people are on productions that are quickly thrown away and you have like jobs for years. You become easily replaceable and sort of forgotten. Hi, my name is Hasani Walker. I'm the creator of Doris Doodle. You can find me at dorisdoodle.com. And also, if you look up Hasani Walker on Tumblr, Instagram, and TikTok, along with looking up Doris Doodle on those same platforms and on YouTube, you can find me there. And you're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today by a multi-talented individual. He is an animator. He's a sculptor. He is in the film industry as well as a comic creator. He's the creator of Doris Doodle. We're joined by the ever-talented Hasani Walker. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's good to have you here. You know, I put out this whole Threads thing because I saw it was a thing on the 20 other million social media platforms that we're all part of here. And I put out the message, hey, I want to connect with talented people in the TV and film industry. And you were one of the people that said, yeah, hey, I'm part of that scene. You should really interview me. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I read up on your bio here. You worked on Pinocchio with Guillermo del Toro. You've done this amazing webcomic. But for those that don't know anything about you as a creative person, who are you and what are you bringing to Two Geeks Talking today?
Oh, well, I guess, as you said, my name is Hasani Walker. And I have been in the industry for, I guess it's going on about 10 years. I think what I bring is, actually, I guess, a lot of experience in terms of just really struggling to kind of get into the industry. I actually came from, like everyone I talked to in the industry has actually sort of had connections already before getting into here. And I was actually working customer service, call centers, and at a medical place all the time, trying desperately to get into animation. It took me a long time to actually get into a studio. And when I did, it was actually a very low tier job. So I had to work my way up. But I think, yeah, I guess in that I bring a lot of I guess just a can-do attitude and how to sort of get into the industry when you don't really know anyone in it.
And of course, Doris Doodle as well.
Oh yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, a new comic that is basically my love of animation and also thoughts on the industry all rolled into one.
I saw the concept, and the first thing that came to my mind was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I mean, that just it was like 100% like explosion, light bulb, whatever you want to call that metaphor here. This is just a great concept that needed a modern twist. I loved it back in the day when Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Bob Hoskins, amazing actor, great actor overall. But bringing it to a comic here, what was that first doodle, or for you using a play on your words, what was the first doodle or first character that came to your mind? You're like, I can take this from a doodle to an actual comic.
I'll say that. I mean, obviously, Roger Rabbit has been a huge influence on me. Loved as a kid. It's a film that I actually have two. Actually, I guess technically I have three copies of it. I have a VHS copy. I have when it first came up on DVD, and then I have a special Blu-ray DVD edition. It's a movie that I have to sort of plan my time around watching it because when I watch it, I'll watch the movie, and I'll watch it with commentary, then I'll watch the behind the scenes, then I'll watch it again with that fresh in my mind, and then I'll try to do the technique they did in the film on my own animation. So it's like a month-long adventure. The way that Doris Doodle sort of came about, when I was working at Leica, I mostly drew sort of like monster and just like kind of demon-like characters, which I've always done. And I wanted to try drawing something a little bit different. So I drew this 1930s style cartoon character. And I just called her the Toon Princess. And I just did like a concept sketch and a turnaround, and I left it at that. But after a while, I started doing these small comics online that were just sort of my insights of stories and films that I liked. I did one that was actually a story about Donald Duck having an existential crisis, a story that was about Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas, about her finding agency. And after that, I thought, well, I want to do a story of Roger Rabbit, but I don't want to do it with any of the main characters. I want to do my own thing. And that's where Doris Doodle started from. It was sort of a play on Roger Rabbit, but then it started spinning into this whole idea of just the film industry and this other kind of viewpoint. And after a while, when I saw that it really was its own thing, I sort of took out all the, I had appearances from copyrighted characters, and I sort of removed all of them, and I put in all original characters. Were like, oh, I can make this. It's gaining a following. I can just make this my own thing, like my own love letter animation, and it grew from there, and it's still growing now.
And you've been doing this for how long, though?
I mean, I drew up the characters sometime around 2017, but actually making the comic that started while I was on working on Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So that was sometime around 2020 that I started actually making the character and telling the story. So it has been around like 6 to 7 years, having the comic out there and then adding to the comic, because after I posted it, there were people that asked about the characters. It started gaining a following. So I made them their own personal Tumblr page. I made them an Instagram page. I made them a TikTok page. So I started adding to that as if you can look into these characters' lives. And eventually I decided to just make a graphic novel, just redo the online novel all in color and fully detailed. And that took about 2 years to put together, because I was, all the backgrounds were done in, they were all done in CG. So they're all Blender and Maya, and all the cartoon characters, I wanted that Roger Rabbit feel. So when you look at the comic and you see the characters, they're done in that same style of having the main drawing and then having a separate drawing for their shadows, deep shadows, and then lighting and backlighting, and then putting that all together to get this nice kind of rounded look on them. And there definitely was an easier way to do that, but I really wanted to keep within the tradition of a film that I loved.
You know, when you strip away the nostalgia and the aesthetic of the old Hollywood that you're emulating from this Doris Doodle character, what did the story of Doris Doodle actually become for you?
It became a story about just what it's like to struggle in entertainment, which, I mean, I love working in film, I love working in animation, but it's a hard industry to be in. It's something that, I mean, you hear about it all the time, where people are on productions that are quickly thrown away, and you have like jobs for years. You become easily replaceable and sort of forgotten. And especially in animation, it's so hard to find appreciation in film with animation. During the pandemic, when a lot of studios were kind of going towards animation saved a lot of productions. Behind the scenes, it was hard because they voiced that they did not like working with animation. They really wanted like the films to look more like live action. They asked like, well, can the stop motion look more like live action? They just did not want like the animation feel. The nice thing is that Doris Doodle was never really about like the appearances. I had like things like Minnie Mouse, like modern day Minnie Mouse, and Betty Boop, who are public domain, but only the original drawings are public domain now. So I had like their modern look. So those are taken out. Putting them with different characters, it didn't change the message, which was that this industry, it's hard, it's difficult, it feels like it'll take a lot from you, but the thing is, you really need to just believe in yourself, believe in your own creativity, and just find your own path.
It's amazing the teamwork that's around films and TV that a lot of people just don't know about, because it takes a group of people, and the adage of it takes a village to make a film is quite
Absolutely.
literally true.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And even through like just the roughest moments, and just like, I mean, I've met people, it's something where I met people that I looked up to and made things that I loved. And after meeting them, it's hard to look at those films because it's like, oh, like I didn't realize that this was the kind of person that made this. But other times meeting people is like, oh, like they're amazing and they kind of have the same story as I do. Like they're really trying, and it just makes you respect them more. And there's a lot of, I guess, sort of survival in the chaos, and you get closer to people. Like one person at like a, so I'm like, oh yeah, it's kind of like we're all sort of surviving in the trenches together, and we just get closer because of that. And I feel like that is true, because I still have a lot of people I've met my first years of Leica that I still talk to. Like they gone into productions overseas, and I stay in contact because you form a very close bond with those people. Just yeah, struggling together.
Trauma brings people together. Who knew?
Yeah.
About your character development here, especially with Doris, how did Doris evolve from the first version of her character sketch into the version readers meet in the series?
But when I first sketched her, yes, she didn't really have any kind of character. I guess that's kind of how it goes. It was just like, well, yeah, I thought of her as like, I sort of drew her as like a stuck up princess kind of character. But then when I started making out the comic, and the thing about all the comics I've done, I do a lot of free writing. So I had a basic idea, and that idea was that she's an actress that has been forgotten, and she doesn't have any more roles. And from there, I just sort of saw where the character would go. It was kind of tricky because as I would write, I was posting these things daily. And there were some times when I would post something one day, and the next day I had no idea what was going to happen in the story. While at Shadow Machine working on Pinocchio, I had a coworker, Toby Froud, who he would read the comic and he'd tell like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what happens to Doors tomorrow." And it's like, "Oh, I can't wait either because I have no idea. I need to figure it out before I get home." I mean, like when you're actually doing that kind of writing and yeah, just seeing where the character goes, I find that it's really helpful just to kind of take from life and people that you know. So where Doris was kind of a blank slate and just like a lost actor, I really started to inject a lot of my mom into the character. So a lot of the things that she says, a lot of the things that she does, things that she doesn't put up with, and how she will just kind of confront people if she feels like they're, well, yeah, like she's not being treated right. That, yeah, a lot of that just came from my mom. And that just kind of made it easier to sort of see whenever I had it in a situation, I could just think, like, well, what would she do? And along with that, her Doris's knowledge of animation came from me. So it was kind of like it's sort of a split between the two. So the personality just kind of became a mix of that. Whereas, I mean, that happens in a lot of stories. So even in another character in the story, Dawn Doodle, that comes up later on, she was a blank slate who basically became my sister. So it's a combination of my mindset in animation and like how my sister would like talk to people in like a no filter sort of aspect. So yeah, that's really where the personalities came from.
I was going to ask about the relationships in general for your characters here, but specifically with Doris itself, and maybe this will relate to any of your other characters. You can kind of interweave it as you go here. Which relationship in the series best exposes who Doris really is underneath the public persona?
I would say, well, there's really two that I think really get into it. I mean, the one that is the focus, there's Doris, and then there's Dawn, who comes into her life. And Dawn is a character that's sort of designed after Doris, and because of that, she has this sort of like she has an attitude towards things. She's curious, she asks questions, and yeah, she's kind of sort of confrontational, but in that sense, it becomes a healthy thing that just starts to motivate Doris to sort of see more into her life and confront things that she didn't want to confront. And through that, you see a lot more of like who Doris really is and what she probably needs in life. Because at first, it's all just a struggle of how does she get her fame back? And with Dawn, it becomes like, well, maybe there's something more that Doris needs to kind of get her life together. And the other character that I think really shows who Doris is, there's a character, Lana Lamb, who was an original character in the book. In the original comic, she was Betty Boop. So I changed it over because, I mean, in the comic, you'll still see the original Betty Boop makes an appearance because that's public domain, but I couldn't use modern Betty Boop. So I added in this Lamb character. And the thing about her is she has the fame. Like she has actually made it. She's like well-known star, and she's still friends with Doris. And through her, it's more or less Doris is sort of seeing what she could have become if she had stayed in the industry, if she like had the stardom and went forward. And I think just like when you're in film, I think like any industry, like it's hard to not compare yourself to others. So Lana is that person that Doris will constantly compare herself to. And you just kind of see like how does he react to that and how does he confront that, and that's another way that you kind of see like how her personality really shines through.
Especially writing a long running comic as you have here, writing chemistry and tension and trust into these relationships has to be a little challenging here. How do you do that without over explaining it to the reader?
It's become simpler over time. I think the easiest thing for me is when you put characters that are very opposite to each other, or characters that are just sort of forcing like some sort of viewpoint on them, and just kind of seeing how they react to that. And through that, it's really easy to sort of just let your character grow. And one thing I like doing is, because it's a lot of free writing, if I get to a place where I sort of write the character into a corner, I just let it play out. So there have been moments where I reached the point where it looks like, well, this is going to be kind of dangerous. And it even happened in the book where I thought I was like kind of reaching a point where I was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to get the character out of this. And I know what I would want to happen, but it becomes a thing of, well, rather than what I want to happen, like rather than, well, I want like someone to come in and like kind of help this character at this point, and that's sort of like this ex machina kind of thing. It becomes like, well, what would really happen? What would be the actual outcome of this? Like, how would life actually like go about this? Is there something that can naturally come in? And if not, then how would the character sort of react to the consequences of what happens? And in each story, I sort of stick with that. And it's kind of become my favorite way of writing, just kind of seeing where the story goes when you reach those kind of moments.
It's got to be freeing though as well too. The fact that you're not really beholden to a script or to a process here. You have a general idea or concept, and I think that could be freeing. But that could also be debilitating as well too, from a creative standpoint. How do you handle that?
It is freeing. It's a lot like sort of ad-libbing or just like improv. It does get a little stressful at times. Like I said, when I'd be asked at work, like, well, what happens tomorrow? I was like, well, I don't know. I need to figure that out. There are moments when I start thinking like, well, I don't know if this is actually going in the right direction. It took a while to sort of trust that a story would go in the right direction when writing in that kind of fashion. And now I will try to plan out a story. I mean, I guess you always need to plan out something. And like I said, there is still kind of a baseline, but I think that if you reach a point where a character says something and it seems natural and it's like, well, that would really change the perspective of where this was going, I think it's best to kind of just go in that direction, no matter how frightening it seemed, or no matter how it seems like, well, that's going to derail the idea of what was going to happen. And that's extremely frightening. It's kind of fun to see where it will actually take everything. And I think it's basically the idea of when they say that your characters will come alive at some point. And I think that's true of like anything, any medium that you're working in, that at some point the character will kind of tell you like where they want to go, and you just have to let it happen, no matter how scary it is. And it is scary, but you just have to trust that it is going to land in a good place.
Speaking of coming alive, the fact that you worked on Pinocchio kind of works out really well as well too here. A beautiful film, great animation overall. Like it's one of those modern tellings of the tale that fit the original Disney cartoon from back in the day here. You must have learned a lot on that particular set, especially from an animation side of things. Did that translate over to how you did your characters' expressions, movements, or visual storytelling with Doris Doodle?
I mean, it was such a wonderful experience working on that. Uh, I was mainly because I was mainly sculpting and fixing puppets, and I would be on stages at sometimes doing puppet hospital work. So if something broke down, I would help on a stage there. In terms of like translating to the Doris story, because I was kind of doing something really different. I feel like it was more of a break from Pinocchio, because when you're working on something, it's kind of just be like focused on that and not feel like you can like have some sort of time separate from it. So I'd be at work helping on Pinocchio and yeah, sculpting up characters, and then I would go home and I can actually kind of switch my mindset, just like work on a different story entirely. I will say that one thing that did help and really like sort of motivated me more was the fact that when Guillermo did Pinocchio, he had a lot of rejections from it because it was a darker story and it was an animated story, and a lot of studios said no because of that. I've met producers and execs that are really hard set that animation is for kids, and that if you're going to do animation, like you shouldn't really have anything that's going to be like anything that's really dangerous or like any kind of like words that might be like bad for kids. But seeing Guillermo like, well, no, like this is a story I want to tell, and that's where I'm going with it, and I'm not going to have anyone make me change what I want to do here. Seeing that, it's like, well, yeah, like I love that. That's what I want. So with Doris, the story, it gets dark, and I wanted that. I wanted it to go to places that you don't really see in stories, animation stories in the industry. I mean, you see them like in live action films, but not really expressed through the medium of animation. The thing is, in the industry, I feel like behind the scenes in animation, you get as much of the hardships and troubling stories that you hear from live action sets. And I wanted to have Doris express that. And I didn't want anyone to tell me like, well, no, you can't, it's animated. Like it has to be like for kids. When I posted online, there were people that would sort of comment on that. It's like, oh no, like she's animated, she's made for kids. And fortunately, like those people, like they would seem like very hesitant at first as the story went on and they saw where it was going. They saw what the message was, which is what I wanted. So seeing Guillermo's process made me think like, yeah, like you shouldn't have to water down your idea. Like you should take it where you want it to go.
100%. Yeah. And there's a lot of self censorship as well, too, when it comes to a creative process. Sometimes people are trying to toe the line between what's acceptable and, whatever. But in reality, it's your vision, it's your story. You're the only one that can actively tell it. So tell it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was very important to me and it still is.
In your day job, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, you're part of a big pipeline at Shadow Machine. On Doris Doodle, you're the pipeline. What production habits or workflows from the studio life have you used to make your solo comic actually finishable?
I have been on a lot of projects. I'm like sort of the solo person working on it, which everyone that I know is always extremely busy. Because I'm always in like the creative side, it's sort of hard for me to organize ideas. With seeing how like a studio operates, I think one thing that really helped was just seeing how they present ideas to the public and just sort of getting it out there. And to me, that felt like when you do that, it's like a real promise that they're going to see something. With Doris, I started like putting out there and trying to do like just letting people sort of see the idea and see where it was going and just letting me know like, well, yeah, like this is going to get done. That was like a huge motivation for getting the project going. Like you can feel that it was like at Leica, felt the same way at Sound Machine, at other places I've been. When something is presented or someone tours the studio and they look and they say like, well, wow, like this is like some amazing stuff. It lets you get out of your head and really like, yeah, I guess this is amazing stuff, and really pushes you to like, yeah, like I should make like people actually like this. So yeah, that was wonderful to see, and that's something that I like keep a hold of. Another thing that I would say that transfers into my production pipeline, it's hard to say since like from film and book, it is a little bit different. That and I guess my whole process and just kind of freewheeling it goes a little different too. One thing, and this mainly comes from working with Guillermo del Toro, being able to still open up your ideas to other people and just sort of take in any kind of critiques or thoughts from them. I think the best thing is taking critiques from people that necessarily are not into the kind of thing that you're making. So like I would present an idea to like Doris to people that aren't comic savvy or like animation savvy and just seeing like, well, how does the story speak to them? And seeing like, do they actually get something out of it? And taking that to heart and listening to what they have to actually say on it. And that was something that like Guillermo, I know like he doesn't really do focus groups. He does focus groups with friends and people that he knows and people that he knows that will be honest with his ideas and will tell him like this doesn't really make sense and you should like take this into this kind of direction. And I like that. I like not having people like not having yes men all around. And even though it is just me mostly working on the books and the web comics, I still like getting just thoughts from friends on what they think of how something is going and how it's reading.
Yeah, having that outside perspective is definitely a key factor.
It is.
You could always go to social media, but then who knows what you're going to get.
Yeah.
For good or for bad for that matter. You're doing a lot of balancing when it comes to this? You're dealing with comedy, with melancholy, with the industry critique, as you mentioned earlier here. What is your checklist for deciding whether a scene needs more heart, more humor, or more darkness?
For me, it all sort of falls into what feels natural for the scene. I think when you have characters that have very outspoken kind of character, even like closed in kind of characters, and seeing where they go with the story, humor I think comes in very naturally, and that's what I like. Like there are parts in the comics that people told me like they laughed like out loud from it, and there'll be things like that Don will just kind of say, and it's nice to have a character that has no filter and will say whatever's on her mind for comedy, but at the same time, having characters that will confront and say what they're thinking can also just sort of bring in an interesting amount of drama, and it sort of comes into the same place, like in terms of like comedy and drama and just like fear. It's all just trying to write something that's relatable and something that feels human, something that you connect with and something that you can sort of see happening in your everyday life. And yeah, it becomes a simpler thing, I believe. It becomes something that you don't have to force, and you shouldn't have to force it because it's what you hear every day when you're just talking to people. And I think if anyone is writing a story and they're sort of like wondering like, well, how do I put in something for like a horror or like fear kind of moment or like a funny kind of moment, don't try and just force in a joke or force in like a scare. Think about life, think about what you've seen, just open reactions and being outside and around people, and just put that into your story. It makes it easier to find those moments and know where and when they should come out.
Everyone has one person that inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
There are a few people in film that have inspired me. I mean, like the films I love, like watching things like Don Bluth and Henry Selick, and yeah, but yeah, like Robert Zemeckis and Richard Williams. But I would say that the people that really inspired me are the people that were close to me, because I think those are ones that I really turn to in terms of like advice all the time. So definitely my mom, since she appears a lot in my writing, a lot of my characters reflect her, along with my sister, my dad. So yeah, family members, and um, I had an art mentor when, God, I think when I was 12, an airbrush artist named Dave Lucero, and he didn't just teach me about painting. He would also just like sort of take me to art shows and museums, and um, yeah, he also just sort of taught me about like life and how people are, and a lot of that perspective just plays into what I do today. Not just in terms of like just creativity, just like how he lived his life. I mean, he was um he was an artist that yeah, just like a solo artist, and now he has like a huge family with kids, and he's living like a great life. And I just yeah, I just find that very inspiring. So yeah, that's those are so yeah, it'd be easy to kind of just go into like a major creative person, but yeah, the people that inspired me were definitely my family.
From a professional standpoint, you have been in the TV and film industry for over 10 years. You've been creating this amazing comic for a good number of while, and you're enjoying what you're doing. I can hear that as we're talking here today, and I think that's wonderful to see. And we need more people like you in both industries for that matter.
Oh, thank you.
From a professional standpoint, you are successful. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
Yeah, it's hard to say because gotta think about an instructor I had in school who someone asked him like, well, how do you know when you're a successful artist? And he said like, well, when you figure that out, you tell me, because yeah, it's hard to sort of get out of your mind and just sort of think that you're not doing enough, which I definitely get into that imposter syndrome a lot, and wondering like, well, am I doing the right thing here? And yeah, it's a difficult process, but I think the moments when actually feeling like I have actually made it and actually have been successful, it mostly happens when I get reactions to my work, which it sort of feels weird to say that it's from like strangers, sort of like yeah, like actually getting like a yeah, like just like, oh yeah, my life's doing well because strangers told me to. But there's a thing about art is not really completed until you give it to someone until like the audience gives a reaction. Like that's the final part of the art. So when I have people that actually write to me and tell me what the work I've done, what it meant to me, what a story meant to me, or how it actually affected their lives, I think that's when I feel that I actually made like a difference, when like I actually put something out into the world. It's like, well, yeah, like it actually affected someone. And I think that's a good way of success, no matter like how small or big it is. If you can make something that actually has an effect on someone, I think I think that's successful.
The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failures?
It's when dealing with failures, it's God, I feel like a lot of just like artists, like I definitely reach moments when I just sort of have to like mope for a little while when I feel like I've failed. But immediately after, I try to get right back into doing what I was doing. And yeah, I think there's two ways I can think of like how I've done dealt with failure. One is I definitely put it into my work. So there were moments when, after I had worked on a film, and we had a long pause with no work, and I was like trying to apply to different studios and I wasn't getting anything, I made just like some quick animations that were about a character that was trying to do the best they can with different kind of tests, and no matter what they did, they failed. And that was very relieving, just kind of like put it out there in a way. And along with that, like I created something in the process. So there was like, that was also healing. And another moment I can think of when really had failure was I made a short film years ago in high school based on Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. It was a stop motion film. And I remember when I was editing the film, I pretty much had it all put together. And something happened where the sound got corrupted. It was a 13-minute film, and I couldn't fix the sound. And for a day, I remember I was just like extremely depressed, and like I worked so hard on this thing and it's like broken. And then the next day, I went back to the computer and just kind of sat down and just decided, like, well, I got to finish it. And just went and kept going away at it, and eventually got it going. And yeah, like it's completed. It's on YouTube now. It's very crude, but I mean, it was made in high school. It's like my first stop motion film. I didn't know how to use green screen, but it was completed. And I think what I learned from that, it was a one way to deal with failure, and just kind of come from a Walt Disney quote, was you just keep moving forward. Just whatever happens, you just keep trying.
The younger generation is looking at your work and they're becoming inspired to be creative in their own way, whether it's in animation or as a comic creator. Maybe you're inspiring them down your path with your amazing work. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
Actually, just start creating. Just yeah, put a pencil to paper, and or just like creating music or stories. It doesn't matter where you are. Just if you have something to say, just find a way to say it. And I mean, skill set, you don't have to worry about skill set in terms of how you're drawing and how you're animating. Um, if you have something that's just kind of in your heart and something that's just on your mind, bring it out there. And I think that once you do that, you'll find that there are other people that feel the same way that you do, that see life the way that you do. And that's how you build a community, and that's how you inspire people. I mean, it could be just like just like a quick little clay figure that you animate and put it online. And even if it doesn't have a story, just the emotion that it brings to you will definitely just come to someone else. And that's how you'll build a connection. And yeah, from that connection, I think that will grow into just having other people just want to do the same thing and build work that inspires others. So it's really just, you just have to get started. You just have to trust yourself and don't be afraid to put it out there. get people that will criticize it, but I think that for every one person that criticizes your work, there's definitely going to be like dozens of others that are going to see it and just think like, well, this says something to me. And it just awakens something in them. And that's what's important.
If your life was a comic book, what would its title be? And what would its soundtrack be?
If my life was a comic book, hmm,
Or animated film, whatever you
or film, yeah, what would it be? My immediate mind goes into wanting to call it something like Topsy Turvy, just because there was a lot of struggle to get into where I'm at right now, and a lot of different turns, and yeah, a lot of crazy jobs, and I'm actually surprised that I got to where I am now. I mean, I I worked at Sears, I worked at Fry's Electronics, I worked at a printing place, I worked in a medical facility, call centers, and the whole time I had my mind was set on animation and trying to get there. And even when it seemed like it wasn't going to happen, I still just pressed on and eventually got there. But even while here, it's a crazy process that I'm still going about. So yeah, that would definitely be the title. And as for the soundtrack, for me, it would probably be something by, I would say, Philip Glass, because I think just the otherworldliness of his music, which I listen to a lot, yeah, I feel like I identify with that.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, Hasani, I do hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed this.
For those that want to support you, and of course your amazing career with Doris Doodle and your animation and everything along that line, where can they find you? How can they support you? And anything else you'd like to promote?
Oh, well, they could find more about the characters in the book at dorisdoodle.com. You can also find the book, if you just look up Hasani Walker and Doris Doodle, you'll find it on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, and Powell's, and pretty much anywhere where you can get a book online, you should be able to order the book. So yeah, you can find it there. And I guess if you look up Hasani Walker on any social page, you'll most likely find me.
Well, like I said, that is this particular episode of Two Geeks Talk. You could, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TGT Media. The podcast you can find by searching Two Geeks Talking. That's TWO Geeks Talking, wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.